Hi everyone, Bernard here. I hope you're all staying safe and well, and welcome to our newer features as I'm doing this. This is the third one I'm recording now. Yes, it's City at the Movies, or I mean, it's called City at the Movies. It could be City on TV, it could be City on YouTube, who knows, it could be anything like that, but yeah, we call it City at the Movies. We've got to go on to TV today, a very special thing for me. I do remember this series as a 9-10-year-old kid. Fantastic, one of my favourites, and I'm happy to talk about this one. And today we're going to look at the something filmed between 1969 and 70. There's 3 series of it, 3 series altogether, filmed over just over 2 years. And we're going to have a look at Ma, it's the Dustbinmen. Remember that? There we go. We're going to have a look at that today. Please, if you're new to the channel, push that subscriber button, push the bell notification, check out all my City stuff. I try and do a good mix of stuff for old and new, for all City fans, young and old. So please have a check at that. And if you also see my film and TV channel, as you probably know, and you'll guess from this City at the Movies, I do have a great love for film and TV as well. So please check that out. If you want to have a rest from football, that'd be fantastic. Links on screen for Facebook and Twitter, and all friends and follows are reciprocated. You check every 2 or 3 days and follow and friend everyone back. All your comments are welcome. Any memories you've got of this series, if you're as old as me and you remember the series, I say it was etched in memory for me. This one, fantastic. I've loved doing this little. I'm going to love doing this little vlog for you. So any of your memories, no time to give us a comment today, just give us a thumbs up last night if you enjoy it. Yeah, on the 30th of September, I've not been able to locate this actually, in 1968, there was a 75-minute comedy entitled There's a Hole in My Bucket, Delilah. It was part of the ITV Playhouse series. As I say, I've not been able to actually find that, to actually have a look at it, but it was written by Jack Rosenthal and directed by Michael Apted at the time, and it would introduce us to 4 bin men. Obviously they didn't all reprise the roles, but we'll talk about one certain gentleman who made the series for me and what it's mainly about today. It would introduce us to 4 northern Manchester-based bin men. I've watched these Dustbin Men. I can't figure out where they're shot, to be honest with you, and I've had a quick scan round trying to find out where they were on location. I've not had any luck, so if you know, give us a shout anyway. But I didn't remember. Not many places look familiar, but obviously it was a long time ago now, wasn't it? And I was a bit young at the time. So 4 bin men we got introduced to with this one-off drama special, and Grad would actually then commission 3 more series, plus there was a 9-minute Christmas special as well, which I got to watch, which was quite funny. So just a 9-minute Christmas special, must be something special for Christmas anyway. And significantly, it would feature one of my first real TV actor heroes, I think, and as a young City fan, even though the storyline wasn't the funniest, it wasn't the funniest all the time. I mean, I've watched it back now. It stands up okay because of my happy memories, but it wasn't always the greatest. But it was at the time one of my favourite comedies, and it was a bit grown up, so I enjoyed watching it. I'm not sure what time of night it was on, but it was up there with shows like On the Buses, which was I can still enjoy now and watch. And obviously it was up there with that as far as myself watching it, and a lot of people. It was very, very popular at the time, and it was all because of one actor really. I think he made it for me. Obviously, an actor called Graham Haberfield, who played Winston in this one-off, and then reprised his role in the series as well. Of course, Winston was a dyed-in-the-wool, real proper City fan. Let's be honest about it. In this series, an episode didn't go by where, even an episode where he didn't feature about to the last minute of it, it didn't go by without some connection with City, and especially my hero again. That's probably why I've sort of Mr. Haberfield. I loved him. Was his hero was Colin Bell, as most of our guys, our heroes were Colin Bell at that time as well. So there you go. There wasn't an episode passed without a mention for Colin Bell. Don't forget at the time, although City were massive, we just won the league, we just won the FA Cup when this started filming. It had been United that had been the media darlings for a long time. Certainly City has struggled, but we're getting a little bit back into to have a show like this on. As I say, I went to school with a lot of City fans. I didn't. The only United fans we knew, we didn't particularly like, to be honest with you. And I was very lucky. I went into a school with a lot of City fans, City fan mates. So we certainly weren't outnumbered. Probably more City fans than United fans, but it was great to see this, because a program where obviously one of the central characters dressed as a City fan in his City top and his City cap, etc., or homemade City cap, was a City fan. It was just great for me to watch and all my mates to watch it. Obviously, we were City fans at the time. You had to be of that age to understand that. And I was already a fan of this guy. I was already a fan of Graham Haberfield, because he starred as Jerry Booth in Coronation Street, and from he was Len Fairclough's sidekick. We don't speak too much about Len Fairclough now, do we? But he was Len Fairclough's sidekick, and I loved Coronation Street. I don't watch it anymore. It's been a long time that I've given up on it, a long time ago. But I used to love it as a kid. I used to love the grittiness. I used to love the fact it was local, etc., etc. And from the age of 7 and 8. I used to love Coronation Street, and unlike now, where obviously a lot of the football stories, there are mentions of City United, of course, but a lot of the football stories revolve around a fictional Weatherfield county, don't they? Which was probably one of the reasons I stopped watching it. Actually, I just thought it was stupid, to be honest with you. But there you go. A lot of the stuff, but in those days it didn't. Obviously, football was important. I mean, and we'll probably touch on Coronation Street in a future episode of this. But it was all City United basically, and it was all, in my eyes anyway. I mean, as a pretty biased City fan at the time, I always thought City got more mentions and more things, even scenes set at Main Road. We'll touch on that again at some stage, of course, in a future episode. And yes, Mr. Haberfield will be portrayed in this as a City fan, would wear City colours in this programme too, so that was fantastic. So to see him in this the Dustbinmen as a City fan was fantastic. I mean, don't forget, 1969 was really where I start remembering things as a football fan. It's certainly, obviously, how can I not remember things as a football fan? I started going to Main Road in 65, 66, and by 69, obviously, football firmly took a hold on as a passion for me, and obviously a lot of lads my age. And to see this series with a rabid City fan was fantastic. Of course, the dustbin cart in this series was called Thunderbird 3. That's quite nice. I mean, a big fan of Thunderbirds at the time as well. I love Thunderbirds. So there you go. And we just started filming after we'd won the FA Cup. We were the FA Cup holders when this started filming in September 69. So it even had a replica FA Cup stuck on the front of it, which at the time belonged to City, so that was irrelevant to City as well. There was always got to be a City element to the series, of course, but obviously there's always got to be a United one as well. I mean, it was a northern thing, as in Coronation Street, United got mentions, even though I didn't like it, and as in this series, of course. Mr. Part of Winston's joy in this programme was having his little run-ins with United fans, obviously over the 21 episodes, or mentions of United, etc., etc., which we'll go into a little bit more in a bit. I've recently watched all the episodes again. I've watched all 21 plus the Christmas special. As I said, I didn't find that original series, unfortunately. And the style, yeah, it's definitely of its time, as most of these 70s things are. They're of a time, aren't they? I have no objection to things like this. They are like history. It is of its time, and that's all there is to it. I'm not going to go back and quibble and say, oh, you shouldn't watch this because of this racism or this sexism or whatever. I mean, these things are of the time, and I lived through those times, and I accept it for what it is, whether it was right or wrong. That's just how it was at the time. And I mean, there's things like Winston is a bit of a hooligan. Yeah, he's a bit of a hooligan in this, and obviously he's affectionately called a hooligan. And it's sort of just laughed about, etc. But he does some hooligan type things, which again leads to problems, which again I'll talk about in a minute. But of course, these things would be frowned upon now, obviously in this new age. But as I said, it is what it is at the time. So we're just going to have a look at some City highlights and some of the little things in the series. I mean, the characters and the creator of this. I mean, we had characters called Cheese and Egg, Heavy Breathing, Winston Platt, of course, the City fan, and Eric, and they're the crew of Dustcart Thunderbird 3, the Corporation Cleansing Department. There you go. Of course, the name of Thunderbird 3 is an ironic reference to Thunderbirds and Thunderbird 3. Well, it did look a bit like it, actually. The bin wagon did look more like a Thunderbird 3 than certainly any of the other Thunderbirds, that's for sure. And yes, throughout the day, they collect dustbins and treat each other or anyone else with rudeness and disdain, which they probably do. Cheese and Egg is real name is C.E. Petty, a fervent communist, which he got in those days, and the natural-born leader of the gang. With his knowledge, the gang can escape sticky situations if they're lucky. Heavy breathing, well, he's the womanizer, of course. He's the one with the good looks. He went, obviously, the guy who played this went on to be now you being served as well. And a lot of these actors in this series you've seen, he's in lots of different things. So he's obliged to spend most of his time pleasuring housewives, whether he likes to or not. Winston Platt, of course, our diehard Manchester City fan. And obviously he views player Colin Bell as a god, as most of us did at the time, so there's nothing wrong with that, nothing incorrect in that. Well, Sheddick, he was the more sensitive. He was a Coronation Street fan and spends most of his time saving up for a colour telly, which, I certainly didn't have till the early 70s, that's for sure. Yeah, and Jack Rosenthal, the writer, left that show to concentrate on developing another sitcom called The Lovers, which of course starred the wonderful Richard Beckinsale at the time. And this, of course, he was a big United fan in that, and there were mentions, and there were obviously episodes that were set at Main Road and stuff like that. So again, he went from one juxtaposition to another, if you like, and his long-suffering girlfriend in The Lovers, of course, the wonderful, gorgeous Paula Wilcox, was also starred in a couple of episodes of The Dustbinmen as Winston's long-suffering City fan girlfriend. So there you go, another juxtaposition, if you like. So that's quite interesting, but that's how it is. And I say, a lot of familiar faces that went on to do things in Coronation Street and Last of the Summer Wine, etc., etc. And of course, if we talk about some of the funnier City Link stuff, if we're in any doubt as to Winston's loyalty, we get a taste within about 2 or 3 minutes of Series 1, Episode 1, an episode called Beside the Seaside that aired on the 23rd of September, first of all, on 1969. And it has them parts up at the side of the main stand. There'll be an image on screen there. There'll be some images popping up, as I say. There's not that many images around, to be honest with you, but obviously that's a great image of the side of the main stand. Very familiar to me. That's how it would have been like the first time I ever went. And of course, we've got an upraised dustbin cart, and he's obviously cheering on City, who were obviously training on the pitch. And I mean, the actual funny side of it was he couldn't actually see the players. He could only actually see the ball occasionally as it went into the air. So obviously, we get to know his loyalties from the start. And he sings a song about Colin Bell about Mexico, and I have no idea. I don't remember that song. Colin Bell for Mexico, put the baby on the Poe or something. I don't know. I'd never heard that at the time. I might have missed that one. I don't know. As being a 9-10-year-old sitting in the Platt Lane, perhaps his son got the Kippax, and I was a bit young for the Kippax. So there you go at that stage. So that is the opening scene, and obviously they're waiting around, and all the bins aren't being emptied because Winston's watching City train on a Tuesday morning. It must be a regular thing on a Tuesday morning at the ground. We see a little bit of the nasty side, but not in a bad way, but of Winston later on. He's chided by a young lad because he saw this young lad, obviously supposedly a United fan. There's no evidence that he's not got a scarf on or anything, but the young lad says to him, "Why have you got City written on your hat? Is it because you can't spell United?" And obviously Winston starts steaming. You can see him getting angrier and angrier. And then he goes on to say, "Is that why you're a dustman? Because City are rubbish?" So I mean, this is obviously followed by him hauling into the young lad into the back of Thunderbird 3 into the rubbish. Of course, later on in the episode, he's still in there, the poor lad, but later on he releases him as long as the young lad says City are the cream of Europe, and so he makes him say that, and of course he legs off home, the young lad. But that was quite funny in that first episode. Interestingly enough, there's some actual mentions of real results. There's a lot of made up things, where we're playing Newcastle today, and obviously you looked at it and obviously you knew it wasn't correct. But there are some actual mentions of actual results. And in the episode called The Annual Election, where Winston comments about a dream he had that we went to Highbury and were beaten 4-1, but obviously he said he didn't worry about it because once he got to Highbury and he saw the golden locks of Colin Bell coming out of the tunnel, he knew this couldn't happen. But yeah, he quoted the 27th of August 1968, obviously, which was the season after we won the title, one of our first games the following season, and of course it was an actual result. We actually did lose 4-1 at Highbury, so there is connections, and there's a couple mentioned in the series that actually work out, even though most of it isn't, but obviously that was a real connection. And we do get another view outside Main Road in this episode as Thunderbird 3 pulls up with obviously you can hear fans, we are the champions, and etc in the back, and he pulls up more or less the same spot in that first sequence and deposits some City fans out of the back to the game. So that's sort of our last look at the outside of Main Road. Actually, very early on, we see the inside, which we'll talk about in a second, but that was the outside. In the episode Banned from Football, yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one, and this is where the hooligan element obviously is sort of carries on. It follows the fortunes and misfortunes of Winston, and we get to see his girlfriend, Paula Wilcox, and obviously a cardboard Colin Bell. Yeah, it's his mum's house, and he's with his girlfriend, Paula Wilcox, 3 months. So it's been together, going steady for 3 months. She's pretty miserable, as you'd expect, but she probably did that sort of feeling in the Lovers as well when she went on to do that. But and he was watching Colin Bell play for England. Yeah, he was watching an international game, but you could see a big cutout, a big life-size cutout of Colin Bell in the background, which is fantastic. And he does say that Bobby Moore and Martin Peters would be better if they actually had a couple of training sessions with City, stuff like that. But obviously she's getting a bit more frustrated, Paula, and obviously with his lack of interest in her. And even when the football finishes, all he wants to do is talk about England and Colin Bell, etc. So he then cuts to Paula chatting to his mates. He's obviously members of the Bing crew in a pub, and she was asking things like she's only been with him 3 months, don't forget. So she was asking him what he does in the summer. How does he, obviously with no City around, will she get more time in the summer with him? And one of the guys says, well, he rubs his rattle with linseed oil, which is quite funny. And she said she's that frustrated when she took him for the first time to meet her parents. She'd forgot his name and introduced him as Colin Bell. So there you go. And she's a little bit put out. I mean, this is a bit harsh, but Winston told her that she was too beautiful for him. Yeah, she was far too beautiful for Winston, and he could offer her to Mike Summerby if she wanted, which is there you go. And the series progresses. Yeah, this is where the banned thing comes in. He comes into the pub supposedly been thrown out of the match, and he could be banned from City. Apparently, he said he was banned or thrown out for throwing a pasty at a Newcastle goalkeeper, and he'd actually done far worse than this. He didn't know that at the time, but they're all devastated. And then he goes into a sort of like we all do when City lose. He just can't do anything. He can't work properly. He obviously doesn't talk to people. Obviously, his girlfriend sort of talks to him, and he just says yes or no all the time. Just says yes to everything. The inspector at the Binmen even rings up and asks for Joe Mercer to try and get this ban overturned. And Cheese and Egg actually speaks to Joe Mercer, and he ends up putting the phone down on him because he thinks he's just after tickets, but apparently he's chatting to Joe Mercer. So yeah, he just carries on being totally crestfallen. And obviously, he's saying yes to everything. So Paula Wilcox, as his girlfriend, obviously sort of takes advantage of this and said, ask him to marry her. And he said yes, of course. So there you go. They become fiance with quite. So she makes advantage of his crestfallen attitude, and they do set a date for October the 14th, which is also the date of the court case. There you go. So anyway, all pans out okay. His boss takes the stick. He goes and pretends to be Winston. So obviously, if he's banned from Main Road, they'll see him and they'll have his image and know it's him. So obviously, Winston can still go and pretend that he doesn't have to obviously be banned. So he loves his boss for that, the inspector for that. And of course, he's not going to get married. He should be getting married. They're all ready. They're all dressed up for marriage there. But he turns up with the taxi, obviously, with his City gear on, ready to go to the match. And of course, his girlfriend obviously just succumbs and just goes to the match with him instead of getting married. So there you go. But yeah, that's a good episode. I'll remind you of that at the end anyway. I mean, series 2 and 3 was shot in colour, although there's not a lot of the episodes only still remain in black and white, unfortunately. But we did have glorious colour by seasons 2 and 3. Series 2, there's an episode called Cheese and Egg in Charge. That was an interesting one, where somehow Winston ends up being promoted as obviously the new inspector somehow has been conned into calling him Matt Busby, though he thinks his name's Matt Busby. And obviously later in the series, Winston's had enough of his crew, and he, as punishment, he sends them complete with rattles. And this is our last look at Main Road, and it actually has them sat. The three guys are sat in the main stand with the open north stand in the distance with the scoreboard. Fantastic, and obviously the rattle. Apart from them, the ground's empty. It's just those three sat in the stands, and obviously on a sort of foggy, typical Main Road day. If you watch it, if you get to watch that, it just looks like Main Road used to for me as a kid. You know, foggy and quite daunting, really. And obviously they're there with the rattles as punishment. Another episode, Winston's debt. Yeah, that was an interesting one. Yeah, I mean, he's always short on money. He's always borrowing money. And it turns out that any spare cash he's got, which amounts to £5, which was a lot of money in those days, he always bets on City to win 5-0. So we didn't win many games 5-0 in those days, even though we had a good team. And that's why he's short on money. So he ends up actually, during that episode, finding Colin Bell's auntie's house, and he actually manages to get round there, and Colin Bell's round for his tea, apparently. You don't see Colin Bell, of course. This is all second hand. And he has a bit of an epiphany, because Colin Bell says he shouldn't, obviously he said United aren't that bad, and he shouldn't be horrible about United and stuff like this. So he has a bit of an epiphany to start to try and be nicer. So, it all sort of, again, he's sort of seen the light, if you like. But then his girlfriend somehow manages to put a fiver on United to beat City 1-0 in the next game, and obviously he's absolutely devastated by this. He can't see why she's done this. They all sit in the pub trying to make him say, "Come on, United," and he can't say it. It sort of sticks in his throat all the time. But they do get him to go to the match, because obviously United have to win this, so they get him to support. So they all go as though dressed with United scarves, etc., to Old Trafford in this one. So you get a view of Old Trafford as well. So they're all dressed up as United fans, hopefully to see United win, so they can all get the money back, because he owes them all money. So obviously this bet comes in, he can pay off all his debts and pay off the other guys as well. So that's what they go for. So they all stood in the scoreboard end at Old Trafford. Yeah, again, look familiar. Say I didn't go till it was covered, but it's the open end at the scoreboard. Again, there's nobody else in the ground. A couple of policemen turn up, but yeah, interestingly enough, another funny thing with the hooliganism side, of course, Winston's left alone as the other members get into a fight, and the police dragged them off. And again, another young lad, I'm not sure if it was the same young lad as the first episode, but I don't think it was, comments that they must be City fans because they're all hooligans. And obviously this lad somehow ends up on the top of the net, on the netting, as this is while Winston says that City fans aren't hooligans, but this poor lad ends up on the top of the net, obviously by we know how he's got there. Obviously Winston's thrown him up there. And then, yeah, United do beat City, so he's devastated, but he does cheer up a little bit, because once he gets his winnings, rather than pay off his debts, he sticks sticks all the bets on City to win 10-0 the next game. So there you go, he doesn't learn. In Thunderbird 3, yeah, in an NHS ward, that's another episode. That's the one where he's not in it till the very end, about the last minute, but he comes in looking pained. He's lying on his front on a gurney, and he's coming in, and he said, they asked him I thought you were at the match. He said, I wasn't at the match, he said, but apparently he'd been shaking his rattle and shouting for City, and a Sunderland fan had told him where to stick his rattle, so obviously Winston had objected, had refused, so he was in such pain, because obviously the Sunderland fan had actually stuck the rattle in a certain place for him. So there you go. But that was his only real appearance in that episode. And another connection with a real life match. Yeah, I mean, Cheese and Egg Becomes Holy. That's another episode. And of course, there's a reference to the Charity Shield, when we lost the Charity Shield game to Leeds United at Ellen Road. Because obviously Cheese and Egg had seen the light and become all holy, and obviously Winston was claiming that he, 2-1 down in the League Cup at Ellen Road, he got down on his knee to pray for an equaliser, but obviously the one-eyed referee had blown his whistle, unfortunately, just as he got down on one knee, so he didn't have a chance to quite go through that. By Series 3, although City and Colin Bell pop up from time to time, there's no real football-linked storylines, though Winston does turn up in one episode with a scruffy bag, and he claims to the members of his bin crew that it contains Colin Bell's feet. So they're all a little bit, his real feet. But obviously it turns out he's got 150 feet of Colin Bell, but it's film. It's actually film footage he's rescued from the rubbish. Unfortunately, that does go up in flames to Winston's horror later on in the show. But that's the only real main storyline, as I say. And we do actually have Winston, obviously he's lived in his city cap. There's a little there was a little image up on here, if you notice it's gone off now, I'll try and find it, put it on the thing, but he actually swaps his city cap for a German helmet. Yeah, he's wearing an actual German helmet. There's actually, you can just see a little swastika on it. It's got city on the front with the city rosette on the side. So that's the only time I think occasionally he's shown without his cap on, but his city cap on, but that's the only time he has a city German helmet on there with the faded swastika. But there you go. So yeah, if you don't find, it's great to watch all episodes again if you can get a chance. But the three main episodes with the city feel are the first episode, Beside the Seaside, Banned from Football's another one, and Winston's Debt. So they're the main episodes where you get to see a bit of Main Road and even Old Trafford and a bit more city vibe. But they're all worth a watch. They are of the time, as I say. There's lots of little quips and stuff about City, etc. throughout all the episodes of all three series. The DVD, you get the DVD, is still available on the internet if you seek that out, and you can also watch the individual episodes on YouTube as well, but some quality is not as good as on some as others, so just be careful with that. So there you go. Sadly, of course, Graham Haberfield passed away from a heart failure, from natural causes, far too young at an age of only 33, as did Richard Beckinsale, don't forget, as well, who obviously starred in that Lovers thing. But he gave me some great memories, and I think City fans of my age some great memories, and was definitely my first celebrity City fan that I knew. I mean, I like these guys that support City. I always like, your Jason Manfords of this world. I always try and support them and look out for stuff they do. And he was definitely my first celebrity City fan, I'd say, from Coronation Street, and then of course the Dustbinmen. He was born in Chesterfield, Derbyshire, and there's 2 episodes of Coronation Street actually still not shown when he sadly passed away. But his widow wonderfully, kindly allowed Coronation Street as a tribute to show both those episodes, even though obviously Granada had offered not to show them because of the circumstances. But a wonderful woman had said no as a little tribute to her husband. She wanted them to be shown, so that was fantastic. So rest in peace, Graham Haberfield. One of my little, not a footballing hero, but certainly an acting hero for me because of the circumstances. Anyway, let me know in the comments any of your memories. Thanks for watching. What are you going to do the rest of the day? Have a great one. Look after yourselves, look after your friends, look after your families. More important, let's all look after each other. So we meet here again on the Citizen channel, or perhaps you have a flit across, look at my film and TV channel. Similar sort of thing, obviously. Please, I only ask one thing of you. Stay safe, Blues. Come on, City. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.